Hey,
Yeah.
5 minutes before the broadcast.
Yeah.
We are live here on the Believe in Monsters podcast. Go ahead, Joe. Say it.
We are live here on the Believe in Monsters podcast, brought to you by the Believe Network. Proud members of the Believe Network. You'll find us on the Twitter machine at BIM_podcast_pod. Excuse me. The short version. Joe Gaither, Chris Krogman, and Lucas Berry here with another edition of our Year One Rewinds. We're recapping the first year coaches and basically Lucas and I's lifetime, Bear's lifetime. Obviously, we skipped Dick Geron. We started last week with Lovie Smith. And this is all kind of in relation to looking ahead to the 2022 season with our man Matt Eberflus. So we're just kind of seeing what kind of similarities, some comparisons, some contractions. No, that's not even a word. But we're all just hanging out here looking at first year head coaches in our Chicago Bears history as we are anxiously awaiting the 2022 season. Chris Krogman, we missed you last week. We hope your 89th birthday went well and you had a great big old party. You didn't party too hard. Didn't fall and break a hip, but we are very, very happy for you to be back on the podcast tonight. Good evening, guys, and how we doing? Krogman, how was the birthday party?
Good. So for my 89th birthday, my 6 and 4-year-old son, who that's pretty hard to imagine that I had them when I was, 83 and 85, but here we are. So
Still got it.
Going strong. Thank you, Hugh Hefner, for the need for the little blue pill, but hey, we're all better for it. But we went and saw the new Minions movie at the drive-in. So that was their first experience at a drive-in movie theater. Our first experience here in Colorado at the drive-in. It was in an industrial part of town, and there was a lot of noises. So that was a little bit of a poor experience. And we also had our car battery die on us because you have to listen through the FM radio, and we were watching movies sitting in the parking lot, waiting for the movie to start. So little did I think about our car battery, and sure as shit it died. So it was what it was. But I did listen to last week's podcast. I was very moved and honored to have such a warm birthday celebration for my 89th birthday. You son of a bitch. For everybody out there, I'm 43 years old, not 89. And Lovey was my favorite coach that we've had looking back on it. I mean, at the time, Bears could never get over the hump. They couldn't figure offense out for shit. He couldn't hire an offensive coordinator to save his life. So that was always a pain in the ass. But they had a ton of talent on that team, and I do miss that area. My 4-year-old is going to join us here.
There he is.
So, but you guys did great last week. I enjoyed the podcast thoroughly. Lots of good information on the Lovey time frame, but looking forward to breaking down Marc Trestman.
Who's his favorite Bear? Before we move on, who's 4-year-old son's favorite Bear, either right now or all time? Chris Krogman, who's the favorite Bear in his mind?
He says Brian Urlacher.
Smart man.
He's very pronunciated Urlacher at 4 years old too. He can say it extremely well. He actually probably could once he said it a few times, but that's a hard one.
I love it. Luke, how are you doing, man? And before we get into tonight's episode with Marc Trestman, our focus on the 2013 season, why don't you give everybody a little update on the breaking news for the Chicago Bears, and we'll talk briefly about that before we get into the Marc Trestman part.
Massively breaking news. The Bears
We should just skip this because me and Luke are going to fight.
No.
We're not going to fight.
We're gonna.
Fights are good for the podcast. Fights are good.
I'm just joking. This is the more I think about it, Luke. This is a complete non-issue. Like it's a fucking nothing trade. But go ahead.
Oh, it means nothing. Yeah. It is the Bears traded a 7th round 2024 pick for N'Keal Harry, who is on this is the last year of his deal. They got him from New England, and basically was a 1st round pick there. Didn't really do much of anything, and this is pretty much just a fresh start for a guy who once had very high hopes in the league. As Chris said, it probably means absolutely nothing. He's probably a fringe roster player, basically known more as a run blocker than his actual receiving ability, which could be good in this offense, but really, I don't know, doesn't do much for me or the Bears. Just kind of a low risk, high upside type trade. Joe, what do you think of this?
Oh, well, I'm kind of in y'all's boat here. I saw some discussions between a handful of our Bears fans after the trade went down, and it's not going to move the needle. It's just bringing in another guy that has some upside that doesn't cost that much. So what's the difference between him and the rest of the roster, the rest of the wide receivers right now? We're not paying any of our wide receivers that big money, and so the Patriots probably have been trying to move him for quite some time due to their lack of
since February.
Yeah,
I believe they said they were going to try and trade him.
Not impressed with his production as a 1st round pick. To me, this kind of mildly reminds me of the reverse end of a Kevin White deal. Trying to just see what a 1st round guy will do. Now, Kevin White had a lot deeper injury issues when he was here with the Bears, but who picked him? Was it the Cardinals that picked him up in free agency from the Bears? 3 or 4 years ago, and he ended up being nothing in the league. But you talk about the run blocking. He and Byron Pringle both grading out very highly. I know we all have our own feelings about Pro Football Focus, but both grading out very highly in the run game. And could be a good little move. He'll probably be on the roster most of the year, if just based on the fact of how great our wide receiver room is. This comes in response to who is it? David Moore. This comes in response to the former Seahawks wide receiver who just got arrested for the Bears. We didn't really cover that last week. So you just bringing in a bunch of random guys to see if they can play wide receiver, and if you can, great. If you can't, not really a whole lot of things lost. Not really a whole lot of things lost on N'Keal Harry.
I mean, none of these guys are former 1st round picks that are big and fast. I mean, obviously the upside is there, the measurables, the skill set is there. We'll see if a change of scenery does him any good. The obvious thing is they are going to want to run the ball because they have a lot of receivers that can pass block. I mean, like you said, he and Pringle. I also feel like MVS is a really good blocker. Am I way off on that? Am I remembering that correctly, gentlemen? Or, I mean,
I think you're correct, but I don't really know much about that guy. He's another guy like Harry, though. He's just massively huge and athletic, so it wouldn't surprise me.
I mean, let's do it. Let's throw them all out there. We'll run a 3-wide set and just block people because they got to run a nickel because we could pass the ball to guys they can't catch. But hey, those 3 and you throw Mooney out there, just run a quad set and just teams won't know what the hell to do. All those guys are big and strong and fast and they can block you. So, hey, this is the future of the Getsy offense. Just big, strong, fast guys that can't catch the ball.
So I think my biggest thing with this N'Keal Harry thing was nothing against Harry himself. I've never really thought he was a good player, but my big thing was that if Poles is willing to just bring in all these random guys from other teams, Dante Pettis, I think, was an ex-1st round pick as well, and Tajay Sharp was, something for a second there. If Poles is willing to bring in all these guys, but these random late round flyers, or maybe this is the only one, but I just wish he would have took some more late round flyers on rookies in the draft too, to just add some more competition to this room. Maybe you find, another Darnell Mooney in the rough. To me, I think there's higher upside with a 5th or 6th round pick than a reject from another team, but that's just my opinion. So that's kind of like where I'm hung up on this, is just like, oh yeah, I like the deal. I just wish he did more to add more competition to this room than just scraps from other teams who haven't really made it in the NFL.
I mean, kind of like we said, there's a lot of holes to fill on this team. An offensive line was one of them. They, I guess, addressed it in the same manner that you're talking about doing with wide receiver. We saw Pace do this in the past, right, where he just overloaded a position with assets, whether or not it was from free agency or from the draft, whether or not that was a good practice or not. Sometimes it worked out, sometimes it didn't. A lot of times he found one player out of the 4 or 5 randos he signed. So maybe this works. I mean, maybe like you said, Lucas, they added a lot of guys in free agency in the wide receiver room. They had a lot of guys through the draft in the O-line room. It sounds like you would have preferred a mix of both on both fronts. So like half wide receivers in the draft, half through free agency, and the same with the offensive line group. Is that fair?
Yeah, I just feel like with the wide receiver room, it seems like the trend with at least 3 or 4 of these guys just seems to be like guys with high potential that didn't really pan out on other teams that they're just trying to bring in and see if they have something left. But I feel like with a lot of times these guys who change teams like this really doesn't do much for them. They kind of just are who they are. So, I'm not jumping out of my seat. I honestly, though, do you think it's out of the realm of possibility that Harry could possibly play tight end? I mean, he's already almost 230. He's a big dude.
He's 220. He's 6'4", 225. Is it out of the realm of possibility? I mean, no, I guess not. But kind of to your point, Lucas, earlier, you made the point earlier with draft picks, like you have an extended period of time to evaluate, work with them, so on and so forth. Are you bringing in Harry to switch positions in the last year of his deal? I mean, you got 1 year to figure this out. So,
yeah, it's not really going to happen.
Yeah, that's a tough spot. It's a tough spot to put him in when
it just, as a whole, this wide receiver list is just kind of funny to look at. It's like you got Mooney and Pringle are probably the only 2 NFL caliber wide receivers on the depth chart. And then you got Pettis, Sharp, Equinemius St. Brown, N'Keal Harry, just like a bunch of random dudes, Velus Jones, just like, oh my God, if the Bears don't run the ball 50 times a game, I don't know how they're going to move the ball.
Well, it's going to be fun to see. It's going to be fun to find out as we look and see. I mean, all we can do now is wait. Training camp coming up at the end of the month. Let's transition into the theme of our episode, if that's all right. Unless y'all got more discussion that you want to have, maybe. No.
That's it. I do not want to talk about N'Keal Harry anymore.
Let's talk about how Ryan Poles brings in. All he brings in is jailbirds.
Hey man, if those jailbirds can play football, I don't care.
No, the crimes the Bears that he brought in committed were petty, stupid shit that don't even.
What did
really
David
matter.
Moore do? He had he had a registered gun in an unregistered state or some shit, or is that him, or is that somebody else?
They all had some stupid crimes that weren't like anything drastic. It was just like dumb stuff.
Pringle's doing donuts and having his 4-year-old yell at him in the back, telling him, "Daddy, go faster," because that's the truth. And these cops that let this fucking go off didn't have kids. There was some rookie trying to make an impression.
He was arrested. David Moore arrested. Intoxicated person in the drive-thru at Taco Bell. Fell asleep in the drive-thru. Marijuana and 3 pistols found.
Ooh, 3 pistols.
Yes.
Was he like ordering when he fell asleep, or was he just in the parking lot or something?
The Gainesville Police Department said in a press release that the officer responded at 11:18 p.m. on Sunday to a possible intoxicated person asleep in the drive-thru of a Taco Bell. The officer discovered Moore, 27, and a silver 2018 Ford F-250. While speaking to Moore, the odor of marijuana was detected, and during the search of a vehicle, a package of THC edible candies and 3 pistols were found.
That's Ryan Poles' fault. He put the pistols there and he put the edibles in there.
Hey man, the edibles are legal in Chicago, or not. What is it? Not legal, but not
Decriminalized.
decriminalized.
They're not decriminalized?
No, they
They
are.
are decriminalized.
They're not legal, but they're decriminalized.
In Chicago, their edibles aren't legal, but you can aren't
Wait, no.
dispensaries. Yeah, dispensaries.
What are you
are
talking about,
legal.
Joe? Yeah, they're legal there.
Legal, but like federally, you've got different. It's state.
Well, you said in Chicago, so like you can't just like throw. You should say in the United States or in the NFL, because in the NFL it's not legal.
all right,
But
all
in
right.
Chicago, it's definitely they're popping edibles on the legal front.
But it's not legal.
All right, now.
Federally illegal. States wise, it's decriminalized. It's fine.
Anyway,
It's not a big deal.
why are we talking about David Moore? That guy's not
I
even
don't
going to
know.
make the team.
That's what I
N'Keal
mean.
Harry just took his place.
That's probably it. They're gonna cut. They're gonna cut David Moore in the next day or two.
No, but honestly, this is a serious question. Out of like ESB, N'Keal Harry, Dante Pettis, Tajay Sharp, which one of these guys do you want to see make the team?
Dante Pettis.
Bro, I feel like they're all going to make the team.
No way they all make the team. No way. All 4 of them?
A
You
couple.
already have 3 receivers locked in. You
So
normally
Mooney,
probably don't carry more than
Pringle,
5.
Mooney, Pringle, ESB are locked. They've
No,
carried
Mooney. I would say Mooney, Pringle, Valus Jones are locked. I don't know if ESB's locked in there.
ESB is definitely locked.
I think
At
Harry.
4?
That's 4.
Harry-
Harry 5, and Pettis
Well,
is 6, and we're done.
I think Harry and ESB, only one of them makes the team. I think they're very similar type players.
Well, may the best man win. Go.
And Sharp too. He's very
2
similar
men
too. Like,
enter, 1
they're all
man leaves.
big X receivers.
Oh, and you have Daz.
That's what I mean. There's a whole lot of slop there.
Yeah, I could see. I don't think Sharp or Pettis make the team. That's my take. I think Harry, Newsome, St. Brown, Pringle, Mooney, Jones. I think they carry 6.
Yeah. Well, they might be able to get away with practice squatting Newsome again. I don't know. I think they did that for a lot of last year and nothing really happened. No one claimed him.
Yeah, I could see that. Did he ever get? Did he get a couple of starts? Did he do anything?
Yeah, at the end of the year, he did. I think he played in 2 or 3 games.
He didn't show out like Thomas Graham, though, right?
No, I think he had
Yeah, I
like.
think so.
I think
a
he had
catch,
like.
right?
Yeah,
Maybe
I
one
vaguely
catch.
remember him catching a few balls. Oh well. Anyway, that's pretty much it for actual Bears news. And they fired Soup Campbell after around the holiday.
Oh,
He had 6 catches last year.
Chunky Soup.
in 3
Chunky
games.
Soup got fired.
Chunky
Do we know
Soup
why
did get
Chunky Soup
fired.
got fired? After hiring Ryan Poles, no less, on the committee that hired him. So rude.
I have no idea.
Ugh.
Dabbed him in the back.
Dabbed him in the back.
Well, let's go to our first year head coach, Marc Trestman, in the 2013 season here. The Chicago Bears hired Marc Trestman. Joe, do you know what other coaches?
Yes. All right.
This was the Bruce Arians year, wasn't it?
Yes, it was. I mean, let's
Big
take
Bruce.
one step back here and realize Lovie Smith was fired after 9 years.
10-6.
Going 10-6, missing the playoffs on a tiebreaker. On basically the result of a Packers-Vikings game. kept the Bears out of the playoffs. And the organization wanted to move in a different direction. I think they were pretty much, like Chris Krogman said, upset with how the offense had been operating under Lovie Smith, as all of us probably were. And the Bears requested to interview 13 head coaches, 12 from the NFL and 1 from the Canadian Football League. They narrowed it down to our friend Marc Trestman. They narrowed it down to then Seattle Seahawks offensive coordinator Darrell Bevell and offensive coordinator for the Indianapolis Colts, Bruce Arians. And, we all remember Bruce Arians basically had a hotel in Chicago after his interview. And I think Bruce Arians was telling his wife and kids that it's a done deal. I've got the job. But the Chicago Bears went in a different direction, hiring Marc Trestman from the Montreal Alouettes. Ugh.
That is a fact. All those things happened. Darrell Bevell was somebody I was interested in, but I guess let's just talk about Arians because that's the story. And the guy was the coach of the year who had taken over for Pagano, who got cancer, took the Colts to the playoffs, and doesn't get hired as the guy because Emery wants to be the smartest dude in the room. And he continues this arrogance, narcissism throughout draft classes and everything else. And that's who that fool freaking Phil Emery was.
Well, do you think that's probably what led to him not hiring Arians? Because Arians is a very kind of strong-headed dude. He probably would have had quite the clash of personalities there had he got hired.
Probably.
Big ego contest. But Arians got hired by the Cardinals, and they won the Super Bowl, right? A few years after.
Went to the Super Bowl. They didn't win the Super Bowl.
He didn't win one there?
They lost to the Steelers.
Yeah, they lost to the Steelers.
James Harrison down the sidelines, 100-yard interception. Santonio Holmes in the corner of the end zone, touchdown reception.
I think that's one of the most underrated plays in Super Bowl history is that James Harrison return.
That catch at the end of that Super Bowl is phenomenal as well. That entire Super Bowl is filled with electric plays. That catch by Santonio Holmes and the throw by Roethlisberger.
That's like iconic, though.
It's just ridiculous.
That insane, yeah.
Well, and the back and forth of that Super Bowl with Larry Fitzgerald catching that slant over the middle and then taking it to the house, right.
Who was the Cardinals QB then? Was it Palmer?
I think it was.
Yeah, Carson Palmer.
Well, anyways, we hired Trestman from the Canadian Football League, and I don't know. My brain is kind of foggy about what even happened. Like when we first hired him, were people excited, pissed off? I was fairly young when that happened.
His big calling card was he was Rich Gannon's OC out in Oakland when they had a very good season under John Gruden. And Rich Gannon wasn't he NFL MVP? I guess
Gannon.
Yeah, and so he left the Raiders. He went to the Dolphins for a year, assistant head coach, and then kind of morphed into this head coach with the Montreal Alouettes. And maybe it's my error, not error. Maybe it was my ignorance at the time, thinking, "Oh, we got an offensive guru in here. It's something new. It's gonna be fun."
His offense was actually fun.
It was okay. Yeah, it was fun.
It was more than okay, especially in that first year.
Yeah, the Bears had a trio of just absolute towering wide receivers. They had Martellus Bennett, Alshon Jeffrey, Brandon Marshall. All them guys were over 6'5", right?
Mm-hmm.
And then they also had Matt Forte in the backfield.
Mm-hmm. That was another calling card of Trestman. I think that his running backs caught a shit ton of passes in his offensive coordinator NFL days before then. Oh God, the Aaron Kromer shit show. Yeah. So, I looking back on it, remembering, I think people were excited to get an offensive guy because Lovey had never figured out offense.
Yeah.
It
Right.
was, defense and a bunch of offensive coordinators that never knew what they were doing. The best offensive coordinator under Lovey was Mike Martz. I mean, that offense was starting to work. And I think that's the year Cutler broke his finger when we were like 7-3, but he had started to just go off under the Mike Martz system. And yeah, we traded Greg Olson and that sucked balls, but Mike Martz was by far the best OC under Lovey, but he could never get his OCs correct. So I think people were excited for Trestman and the offensive system that was coming. Little did they know he was just a nerd who didn't know how to lead a room or lead a team or lead a people.
The Bears had a lot of turnover that offseason with the hiring of Marc Trestman. They got rid of 8 defensive coaches, 8 assistant coaches. Rod Marinelli, defensive coordinator, was fired. Obviously, Trestman brought in his own OC, Saints offensive line coach Aaron Kromer, and so they have a lot of turnover. But one name stands out to me is very interesting. Is a part of this turnover, Chris Ballard. On May 3rd, Bears Pro Scouting Director Chris Ballard, who had been hired by Phil Emery, left the team for the Chiefs. And just what could have been with Chris Ballard if he kept rising through the ranks? I think it's just interesting as we've done this for 2 weeks to see some of the names and now being a handful of years later where they've gone. Maybe it wouldn't have worked out with the Bears and Chris Ballard, but he's put together a hell of a roster in Indianapolis now that he's been in control.
It didn't work out because they had a chance to hire Chris Ballard and they passed.
Pain.
They took Ryan Pace instead of Chris Ballard. So
ultimate pain.
I still don't even know. Chris Ballard's kind of a weird case. I feel like he builds a great roster, but much like Ryan Pace, he can't get the QB right at all.
Didn't Ballard want to move on from Cutler immediately? And the Bears didn't want to because they had just paid Cutler. We're getting way off track, but that's fine. Yeah, we can address that when we get into the Pace, Nagy, Fox shit show.
Here's another name, Joe, for you. Another recent name. This was the rise of Sean Desai. This was his first year being hired in the NFL by Trestman, and he stuck with the Bears from then up until last year. So he survived a long time. He was one of the positives that come out of this Trestman regime. Just overall, looking at the 2-year body of work of Trestman, I mean, that's got to be one of the shortest coaching tenures in Bears or NFL history. I mean, it's just terrible. 2 years. He was pretty much everything the opposite Lovie Smith was. I mean, he was just an offensive guy. He was a terrible leader, just kind of a terrible coach. But his offense that first year, like Chris said, was really good. Just looking at the numbers here, the Bears scored 445 points, good enough for 27.8 points per game. When was the last time the Bears scored almost 28 points per game? That was second in the league. But their defense gave up 29.9 points a game, and they were 30th out of 32nd in the NFL. So just a complete 180 from what we've seen in the Lovey days. High-scoring offense, and then just defense that was absolutely terrible. And then, like we said, I mean, this roster had a lot of talent on it, so it's like he definitely had a lot to work with. His Vegas over-under when he first got hired was 8.5, and they went 8-8 that year, so he was kind of right on that. But just looking at the Bears roster, I mean, I feel like they could have won definitely more games. That defense was definitely not great, though.
Yeah, I mean, the defensive roster at this point had been pretty depleted. You look through your defense, and what are your name? I mean, Lance Briggs was on the tail end of his tenure in the league. Only played 9 games. Julius Peppers was probably, I mean, not probably, he was the best player on the team on the defensive side of the ball. But you're stuck here with Shea McClellan. I guess that was kind of his second or third year, second year, right?
Yeah.
you got Tim. You had decent secondary,
Yeah,
but
Tillman and Tim Jennings. Yep.
we all remember our favorite Chicago Bears safety, Chris Conti, was back there manning the back end. So like not that great of a defense. It had pretty much deteriorated at that point.
When you have guys like James Anderson and Major Wright leading the team in tackles, it's never going to work. Major Wright was a major pain in the ass. He was terrible, and he was second in the league, second on the team in tackles with 101 tackles, only behind James Anderson, who was a veteran right side linebacker at the time. So, this.
So yeah, but here's the thing though. If you look back the previous year in Lovey's last year, the defense for the most part was very similar. I mean, they still had Urlacher. I mean, they just a lot of random guys though playing for them. But he got a lot out of some of these guys. I mean, he had Henry Melton on that D line who had a great year that year. The year they went 10-6, Lovey's last year, his defense was third in the league in points against, giving up only 17 points a game. So even though the Bears, look at the defensive roster in Trestman's first year, Lovey basically had the same roster and got a ton out of him. You know, obviously he's a defensive coach. That's what you expect out of him. But just to put that, it's just to put it in perspective on how drastic the drop off was for the defense from Lovey to the Trestman days. You know, it was pretty drastic. So it's definitely interesting. To draw the parallel to this year, we hope that this year's Bears defense can, even though don't have a ton of talent, you know, they have some key pieces. You hope that Eberflus can get a lot out of these guys and you have a top 10 unit perhaps. What do you guys think of that? Do you think, who does this fall on where this massive drop off in defensive production falls, when Trestman took over?
It's on Emery and it's on Mel Tucker. Emery did nothing to help the talent level on this team, and he outsmarted himself with Shea McClellan over our boy Chandler Jones.
Dante Eisenhower.
Whatever. Either one would have been fine. But
same thing.
That's who it falls on. And Trestman seemed to have the same problem that Lovey had on a very much shorter stint. Obviously, he couldn't get a defensive coordinator correct, and Lovey couldn't get an offensive coordinator correct. I don't know if he only had Mel Tucker. I thought he had one other person at the end of in his last year, but that was
it was Mel Tucker both years. Yeah, it was Mel Tucker both years.
He was there 3 years, wasn't he? Or no?
No, Trestman only lasted 2 seasons.
8-8
and 5-11.
Yeah, the year before in 2012, the D coordinator was Rod Marinelli. So, yeah, Mel Tucker was not great. He only. Man, that's crazy though. That drastic drop off in defense, and then that offense. I mean, it's crazy how much drastically a coach can impact, the team that much, where they're going from bottom of the league in scoring to almost 28 points per game. But overall, this tenure was. I don't know. After the first year, you definitely thought. I know I was pretty hyped. I was like, wow, the Bears have an offense for the first time in my life. Like, if they can actually somewhat figure out the defense, this team could be really good. But that second year of Trestman was just an absolute disaster, wasn't it, Joe?
Oh, disgusting. Really. I mean, it reminds me a lot of what we saw with Matt Nagy with the unpreparedness to play game and just the lack of giving your team a chance to win. So
what do you mean unprepared, Joe? He always told us that they had a great practice. That was Trestman's calling card. We had a great practice this week.
Yeah, well, a great practice.
Probably, yeah, great. he might have said great week of practice, but that was always his faux pas. Ha ha. He was only there for 2 years, so he had an 8-8 year and had a 5-11 year, and they fired him. Good God.
Yeah, because at the end of the end of the 14th season was like despicably bad. It wasn't like just a little bad. It was horrendous. Let's see.
No, I remember they got destroyed by Green Bay and New England, 50 burgers back
Philly.
to back, like in the middle of the season.
They lost Philly 54-11 in that week 16. I was at that game. That was fucking terrible.
But that was his first year. That was Trestman's first year. That was Trestman's initial year. His second year.
Oh, yeah. You're talking about 14, yeah.
Yeah, his second year, he gets beat. You know, he closes the season on 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 losses. So just fell apart. The wheels just completely fell apart. All right, but we're looking back at 13, not 14. And yes, in 13, they got destroyed by Philadelphia.
Well, they started out well. They started out 3-0. Yeah. And then they lost back-to-back to the Lions and the Saints. They beat the Giants. They lost to Washington. So they were right in the thick of the playoff hunt, 7 at their bye week at week 8. And then they came out and beat Green Bay. So you're like, okay,
Green Bay
could be for real.
That wasn't the Brett Favre night game, was it?
No.
No, because that was under Fox. Brett Favre night was under Fox.
Well, and they lost to the Lions. They beat the Ravens in OT. Lost back-to-back against the Rams and Vikings to get to 6-6. And they won 2 in a row against Dallas and Cleveland. And then scored 45 points on Dallas. Good God.
I remember they flexed this Eagles game because I went to it. And I remember because if the Bears won this game, they were in the playoffs. All they had to do was beat the Eagles this game. And they got absolutely freaking shit canned. That was a terrible experience of that game. And at that point, the Eagles weren't. I mean,
who was the Eagles quarterback at that time?
McNabb.
No way, McNabb.
No, it was Vic. It was
Vic. Yeah, right. That's what I thought. It was Vic.
When did McNabb stop playing for them? He might have been in Washington at that point.
No. That was Nick Foles beating us that game.
Oh,
Nick Foles went 21 of 25 for 230 yards and 2 touchdowns.
Oh, yep, you're right. I just saw Vic on the depth chart here.
LaShawn McCoy rushed for 133 yards and 2 tutties, and we gave up 115 yards to Bryce Brown on the ground and a touchdown as well.
Nick Foles was
Hall
a
of Famer Bryce Brown.
Oh, you know what? This was the year Nick Foles didn't he? I think this was the year he threw like 8 touchdowns versus the Raiders or whatever. He set the NFL record for touchdowns in a game versus the Raiders.
Was this Foles' rookie year?
He was his second year. He was 24. Yep.
Wow. Well, the one of the issues that they had was Cutler only started 11 games, and I can't remember if Cutler gets hurt or if he got benched. One of these 2 years he got benched, but McCown started 5 games and played in 8. So
McCown was actually pretty good for him, to be honest.
He wasn't bad. He had a 66% completion percentage, 13 touchdowns, and only 1 pick. So he did. I mean, he had a 109 QB rating, which is not terrible. Obviously.
I mean, if I remember correctly, you're right. I think Cutler got hurt, and by the end of the year, I feel like did a lot of fans almost want McCown to keep playing and starting?
Probably. Cutler was such a bipolar.
Well, McCown was playing really well. Like I vaguely remember people being like, "Oh, should he just be playing at this point?"
Jay Cutler had a lingering groin injury throughout this year, and so he and Josh McCown kind of went back and forth throughout the season as Cutler was trying to play through it, but not quite effective.
Interesting. Yeah, I mean, this year had a lot of promise the first year, and then I remember It just all fell apart after that.
Yeah, this was
Well,
the Brandon Marshall, defending Jay Cutler in the media, and this was his quote in week 15. Yeah, Josh is doing well. You got to give him credit. He's playing lights out, one of the best quarterbacks playing right now. But Jay Cutler, he's a special guy. There are some things he can do that other quarterbacks can't. That's the physical part. But I put Jay Cutler in any room in the NFL, and he's the smartest guy in the room. So he brings a lot to the table. So Josh McCown basically that same week, the way that I serve my team is to play when the starter's not healthy. Jay's our starting quarterback. There's no doubt about that. So it's this lingering groin issue that kept Jay in and out of lineup.
so let's start drawing some comparisons here to this year's team. I mean, I think.
Hold on, before we jump out of Cutler, did you guys see that he was like a finalist in the American
cornhole
tournament or something like that? Yeah, made it to the finals. It was like, that arm is not going to waste.
He's not getting hit in the head behind a cruddy offensive line anymore. So
9 sacks in a half against the Giants.
Oh my God,
that was brutal. All right, onward.
Well, I was going to say, so if we start drawing some comparisons to this year's Bears team, I don't think there's many. I think the biggest comparison is probably the drastic difference you've seen from Lovey to Trestman is what we're going to see. The opposite from Nagy to Eberflus. Kind of just this shift to more old school style football, more emphasis on being, well coached and hustle as a team, as opposed to, the flashy kind of flashy big play type team that Nagy wanted to have and Trestman wanted to have. But otherwise, I mean, I really don't see many comparisons to this 2013 team. I mean, I sure hope not. We don't have another Trestman on our hands.
I've got one for you, Luke, and I just want to see what you and Chris, see what you guys think of this. Matt Forte was basically the beast on that team. He ended up obviously leading the team in rushing, 1,300 yards, 9 touchdowns, but ended up with 74 receptions as well, right at 600 yards through the air. End of the year with 1,900 yards from scrimmage and 12 total touchdowns. With what we talked about at the very beginning of the podcast, the lackluster wide receiver room, do we see our boy David Montgomery? I know you're a big Khalil Herbert fan, Luke, but do we see David Montgomery maybe producing in similar fashions that Matt Forte was, and running the ball, catching out of the backfield? And can we predict or think that, I guess 1,900 yards is probably too much to assume, but 12 total touchdowns for David Montgomery. What do we think about David Montgomery being that guy, both out of the backfield, on the ground and in the air?
For me personally, I think it's I just think the style of Bears offense that they're going to run is that they're going to split carries a lot with a bunch of random guys. So, Matt Forte, I feel like the lead bell cow back, they're kind of few and far between. And when you have them, you really ride them through. But I just have a feeling, where Getsy comes from and what Shanahan does, they just always have a stable of running backs who are really good and all have kind of bring something new to the table, and they'll ride the hot hand as it comes and goes. But, some days it'll be Herbert, other days it'll be Montgomery, maybe some Tristan Ebner mixed in there and some of these wide receivers getting plays out of the backfield. So I don't really know if we'll see another guy like Matt Forte in a Bears uniform for a little bit, to be honest. And that's not a knock on Montgomery. It's just more so how I think Getsy's going to divvy up his offense. But, I could be wrong, but that's just kind of how I'm seeing it. Chris, what do you think there?
I hope we see a lot of David Montgomery out of the backfield. That's what I really truly hope is we see like 40 catches out of him. I don't think we'll see, Matt Forte type usage out of David Montgomery.
Matt Forte was so special.
No.
Ridiculous, man. Really, really underrated football player.
Let's go a little inside baseball and take the veil down. How many Bears retirements or departures have you spent some time shedding tears over? Because I'll just go first and say I can remember the day that we announced we were not, and we all knew it was coming that year, that off season, but I sat down and shed some tears when Matt Forte was no longer a Bear.
Yeah, I didn't cry over Matt Forte.
You're more of a man than me. At 89 years old, you've seen him come and go for a lifetime.
Something like that. Means I've seen Gale Sayers and Walter Payton, so Matt Forte just does not hold up. Sorry.
What about you, Chris? You got any? You think you got any comparisons to that team and the current Bears? I just think they're so vastly different. It's a hard thing to come up with.
I mean, the only like you could compare Fields and Cutler in a way as far as like arm talent. Maybe not arm talent. Jay had a monster arm, but they are both pretty athletic.
Untapped potential, maybe.
Jay could run the ball. Yeah. Fields can run the ball. Yeah, like you said, untapped potential. Cutler when he was good was really good, but when he was bad, it was like, oh my God. Not another 3 interception game or 4 interception game. Was it like Dante Hall? He threw 4 interceptions too. Dante Hall? That ain't his name. Anyway, that guy. He threw 4 interceptions. D'Angelo Hall threw 4 interceptions to him, and he said, "Yeah, I'll do it again," or whatever. It's like, dude, you'll never learn, bro. You'll never learn. So, I mean, that's kind of a comparison. I think, the offensive talent on the side of the ball that we had when Trestman inherited, and I think he got Brandon Marshall that year, and they signed Bennett. So, I mean, there's a clear talent differentiation between the defense and the offense. I think the defense has a lot more talent on it than the offense does. The offense has a lot of question marks outside of, well, even Fields to a degree. We don't know 100% what he is yet. So, not a lot of comparisons, but other than one side of the ball having a lot more talent than the other. But I mean, GM kind of, Phil Emery, man, had been a scout and around football for so long, but was like 60, 70. He was like 89 years old. He was like my age, when he took over that job. So I not a lot of comparisons there because Ryan Poles is 36, and he's former player. I don't think Emery is a former player. I don't know, but I don't think so. So not a whole lot of comparisons here, but I hope that's probably a good thing at the end of the day, because this era was fucking terrible.
Yeah.
Terrible.
Yeah, it really was. Like I said, I think the only thing I can think of is just because it just reminds me of basically the opposite of what happened with, going from Lovey to, Trestman, I think is what we'll kind of see here between Nagy and Eberflus, just kind of flipped on its head, where Nagy was, out after a short period of time and kind of left us really disappointed. And I don't know. I have a good feeling that Eberflus is going to kind of return us to the Bears culture we've come to know and love and grow up with. Whether people might not like it or not, because they're not going to be all about the offense, but they're going to be about playing disciplined, physical football. And I think the biggest thing I think we'll see is hopefully that they'll be well coached and competitive in a lot of these games, which is different. Way different than what we've seen from Trestman.
What about we'll play devil's advocate right here, because I think we're all in agreement that the new coaching staff, both on offense and defense, will likely have the Bears in better schemes and better prepared, and just overall probably playing more sound football. But the devil's advocate in me says, Marc Trestman was brought in, eight new assistant coaches, and you get a new defensive coordinator, and Mel Tucker. Where's the worry in this experiment? Because at this moment it's still an experiment with Eberflus and his staff. Where's the worry that we don't have the right guys? We brought in 8 guys. We brought in a handful of guys, and I really like the system that Luke Getsy comes from. But where's the worry? Eberflus is putting a defensive coordinator in charge, one that he's worked with, kind of similar to Marc Trestman putting his offensive coordinator in charge. So I kind of have a good feeling about the defense being better. It's just a new scheme, a new philosophy on offense. Where's the worry that we could fall on his face and end up with a bottom unit like Mel Tucker's defense? It was a bottom unit.
So I'll throw out something that I'm slightly concerned with, and you touched on it a little bit right there, Joe. Is Alan Williams, when he did have a chance to be a defensive coordinator in Minnesota, it didn't go so great. And the fact that Eberflus said that he's going to be more of a CEO coach and not be calling plays on defense could be a little concerning if Alan Williams is not doing a good job. We have a lot of good talent on defense. A lot of people think it's a top 15, potentially top 10 if we can get after the quarterback enough type defense. But if Alan Williams falls on his face, then that is going to be a problem. The other, issues that we have are, this is a bunch of first-time guys. Luke Getsy, first-time head coach or offensive coordinator at this level, play caller at this level. Eberflus, first-time, head coach. Not that he hasn't been around the NFL for quite a while and done really well everywhere he's been, and that doesn't have what I think is kind of the makeup of a good head coach. I think he's got a lot of those intangibles, I guess you could say, or the work ethic, the drive that he wants to get out of his guys, the intensity, the teaching ability. A lot of, former players had nothing but good things to say about him and how they got the best years out of their career from being coached by Eberflus. But if he's just the captain and his, individual leaders are the guys on their sides of the ball, then it could get ugly if those guys are the wrong guys. I'm concerned with Alan Williams, honestly, to be fair.
Yeah, I think for me, it's just the lack of experience from the top down. Ryan Poles being kind of a first-time GM, really young, kind of getting thrown into this thing, hiring a first-time head coach, and Alan Williams is probably one of the most experienced coordinators on this staff, which is kind of crazy. Luke Getsy hasn't had any experience calling plays, and as a whole, you're going to be playing a lot of rookies and a lot of young guys too. So just inexperience from the GM to the head coach to his assistant coaches and players. I mean, yeah, that is a recipe where things could go really bad if they're not winning games right away or whatever. The message isn't getting across. So, for me, I am cautiously optimistic that Eberflus's message is one that resonates well with players and players respond to. But on the flip side of that, like I said, with kind of a lack of experience all around, things could get ugly, and it's a matter of, how can they hold things together if they don't go the Bears' way necessarily. So, yeah, that's probably my biggest concern. It's not like I have crazy high expectations for this team regardless. So just tempering my expectations, but for the team themselves, I think lack of experience could really go wrong for them if we're playing devil's advocate here.
But you, Joe?
Yeah, you're all silent over there. You're cooking something up.
No, I'm just,
He's concerned about the alien invasion, bro.
Yeah, no, I'm concerned. I mean, I want it to go well, and I think it can go well. I obviously think the offense can look a lot better under a better scheme, under a better philosophy. I don't know. I wonder if we've got a lot of children out there who are going to get overwhelmed by men with experience. I wonder about the depth on this team. I worry about the depth on the offensive line. You know, I think Justin Fields really could be that franchise guy, but you know, you hear the dummies in the media. You know, the Bears really sold on him. You know, you hear the people who are rightfully so asking if the Bears have given him enough help. And I don't know. And, you know, I think the defense does have a lot of the tools to be a lot better than they were last year. And they were bad last year, but I think they have a lot of the tools to be back into that probably top 10 unit. But I also see a pretty easy path for this year to be not good. Like,
Disastrous.
Yeah. Disaster. Yes, you're right. So, yeah, I mean, I want it to work out. With first year coaches, you know, hope springs eternal. The new year comes, and I always think things are going to be right and fixed. And then a couple games get in, and I'm like, fuck this. So we'll see what happens. I'm definitely concerned.
After like, you know, 80 years of being a Bears fan, that'll go away. Don't worry. Oh, optimism goes away at like 40 years, bro. Don't even worry about it. It'll be gone. No hope springs eternal. You become super like whatever happens. I mean, and that's kind of where I'm at, to be honest.
So I got to go 8 more years before I get there.
So no, eight. No, you got to go however long you've been a Bears fan. So you said
40 years. Okay.
So you said like right before Lovey is when you became a Bears fan,
yeah,
or right
02, 03 in that range.
Oh, you're fucked. You got
when Jim Miller was thrown on his shoulder against the Eagles.
You're done for. Lucas is. I'm gonna be dead by the time.
I got
Lucas
20 more years. 20 more years of misery.
Yeah, you might be, Chris. You never know.
Can we get Chris Krogman one more Super Bowl appearance before he kicks the bucket?
Dude, if I'm 89 right now and y'all got 20 years and if I'm still here to see, you know, you guys just be like, whatever happens, happens. And God is good. And I lived to like, I was like 150. I'm like Moses over here living to like 900.
You'll be doing the podcast with some other old people.
Nah, you'll just be like the young bucks. You'll just be like, you know, 850 years old instead of 900. We'll be talking about, you know, how much the game has changed or how much it's circled back to being the same as it was in like
how we're kicking field goals on Mars.
The daggone Bears offense.
How the new
score more than 12 points a game.
It's like someone sucked the oxygen out of him, Joe.
Well, it's how the new NFL is trying to expand to Jupiter. They're like, hey, you know, is it really worth the space fuel to get out there? I don't know. We'll see. It'll be fun.
Well, anyway, I don't know if I have anything else on Trestman. I'm done talking about this scumbag.
Let's hit 2 minor topics here before we close up. Oh, go ahead.
I just wanted to touch on something. Just one more thing. We were talking about all this. You kind of saying, you know, we'll be optimistic until a few games in. To be honest, I think week 1 will be just a huge test for the Bears. I think specifically the 49ers are really strong where the Bears seem weak. So it'll be really interesting to see how they play and prepare for a team like the 49ers. You know, we have all these questions about the line, right? The 49ers have one of the best D lines and pass rush in the league. So right away in week 1, we're going to see, you know, what this staff is made of and what kind of game plan they put out there, because they have all summer to make one for this game. And I think it'll tell us a lot, honestly. You know, it's not the end all be all, but, you know, they have a lot of time to make a solid game plan to neutralize a very good pass rush. And on the flip side of that,
that's a great point, Lucas. You know, with like seeing what this staff is made of was the best.
Oh yeah,
that whole thing, because, you know, we're all or a lot of Bears fans are like, well, let's see what Braxton Jones is made of, or let's see what, Tevin Jenkins and Larry Borum are made of. But really, it comes down to like, will this staff put the group they have in a position to succeed? But
Right.
please continue.
Well, I was just going to say on the flip side of that, you have the 49ers run game, and I think the Bears are specifically weak on the D line and they're, possibly some of their linebackers. So it'll be interesting to me. I think week 1, that's going to just be a huge test for the Bears. And really we'll see, how good this coaching staff is at scheming things for them. So hopefully we'll get our answers sooner than later. But until then, I will remain optimistic, especially, in the preseason as we see these guys get into camp and stuff. Camp's only a few weeks away. I mean, it's pretty crazy. Just nothing's better than being at work and checking my phone to see the Twitter updates on camp when I can. Just gets me fired up for football season. So, Joe, what were the 2 mini topics you had for us?
2 tiny topics. I want to take 20 seconds and laugh at Lori Lightfoot for suggesting
You dumb idiot.
we're going to put a dome on Soldier Field, and that's going to keep the Bears.
Come on, Chris, do it with me. Clown nose.
Yeah, major clown.
This Arlington Park thing was in the works the second they announced the real
Dude,
estate deal.
it's-
The second they even said, like,
It's
I don't know
10
why
times
anybody thought
than
that
Soldier
this
Field.
was not a fucking done deal. Like, you can talk about like, it's the money, dude. Like, and if the McCaskies somehow build this themselves, it's all their money. You talk about like how Stan Kroenke built a fucking $5 billion stadium in SoFi, but now they reap the rewards from everything that's going to go through there over the next 20, 30 years.
Yes.
And that's going to be massive events. Every
I-
massive event is going to
Yes.
be at SoFi.
I was looking at like just the property sizes, and the Arlington Park place is almost identical to what SoFi is. They're both roughly about 300 acres of land. So I think what the Bears would be building would be very similar to like what the Rams did. And to put that in perspective, I think Soldier Field, I think I read, is like maybe 29 acres total of land. So literally 10 times the size to, expand out there. And Joe, we've been to Chicago for the tailgates before. The lots, I mean, it's great on the lake, but the lots are so spread out. They're unless you're paying $200 for parking right next to this, you're walking 2 miles. You're going to walk in 2-3 miles unless you're paying for the $200 parking, which is right there. So just having everything in one space will be really sweet for once. And there's just, like you said, it's just laughable. There's no shot. Like, they would spend probably $500 million on a dome alone. Just put that money toward the new stadium. Just put the money toward the new stadium. It's a lost cause at this point, Laurie.
She could do anything in the world, but they're not staying. They're just not staying. It's over.
Done. Yes.
Now,
it's absolutely-
Goodell will buy Lori Lightfoot out. And is Lori Lightfoot even have a chance of being the mayor of Chicago if she runs again? Can she even win?
That's a question
no
for a
idea.
resident.
Yeah, that's not a question for us.
Why not? I thought we were all no. We're all not from Chicago. Not.
I'll ask some of my buddies who are residents, but she doesn't seem popular from the outside.
None of the guys in the chat seem to be big fans of hers on either side of the aisle. We have friends on both, right and left leaning, and none of them seem to like her so much. She seems to be less than popular. What is your other mini topic?
Oh, the other small topic is bad news Bears. The team from up north can overtake the Bears this year as winningest franchise of all time.
Oh, who cares?
All right, cool. We'll leave it at that. Who cares?
Things ebb and they flow. The 2 oldest franchises, of course, they have a lot of wins. There'll be a time in the far distant future when Chris Krogman is doing year 900 of BIM podcast, and the Bears will have the best QB in the damn league, and no one will even remember who Aaron Rodgers is. So
that is not going to be the far too distant future. Like, if I don't see that before I'm 100, so literally in the next 11 years, man, I might take a short walk off a long pier, or long walk off a short pier. One of the two. Both of those.
Oh,
That's all I
man.
got tonight. Those.
Oh my God, that was terrible. Joe, I did want to compliment you on last week's rendition of Bear Down. You got all of the lyrics correct, and your voice sounded angelic. So why don't you go ahead and?
Oh, I edited it for him. He was on
you didn't
auto
edit
tune.
the right words out.
He
was on
auto-tuned me.
I auto tuned him.
He T-pained me.
He did not sound like T.
Bear down. Could you imagine?
Dude, that'd be so funny. He should do it like you should do it like DJ.
You're doing it at the
Khaled next
tailgate
year.
this year.
DJ Khaled.
You're gonna do it at the tailgate.
Another one
I'll be
coming
happy-
at you.
I'll be happy to do it at the tailgate.
Bear
I'm not
down.
But here's the thing: if I jump off the vehicle through the table, don't go feet first through the table. You go ass first through the table. You go hip first through the table.
That's what did go through the table was his ass, but his feet hit the table and like slipped out from underneath him, and he broke his ass on it.
Right, that's the issue. You got to just commit to it. Ass, table. You don't bust the back of your head. All that.
I think I'd go shoulder. I think I'm like the shoulder elbow area.
I'm not the table jumping type.
I'm not doing it either. I'm 43 years old. There's no freaking way. You talking me into that shit.
I would do it, but golly,
I would not do
not
that.
feet first on a wet table. Not smart.
Broken wrists.
Oh,
We love you, AJ.
he's very lucky. We love you. We definitely love you, AJ. I'm very glad you're not in the hospital from that incident.
This dude had to have surgery.
He was in a cast for a while.
Yeah, there was no friendly fire for like
It was a
a long
consequence.
time.
Wait, he was?
Yeah.
I
Yeah,
missed that.
Well,
You're not
you were probably
often in the
napping.
chat. You're there.
I missed
You
that.
do miss a lot of the chat, but
Oh.
it came up quite a bit over the summer. No, over the spring. Because when was that last year?
November.
It was Halloween. No, it was Halloween.
Yeah.
Well, it was Halloween,
Halloween.
or November, whatever you want to call that.
And then he got the cast like two months later.
Yeah, like January. Yeah.
Wow.
All right, sing the
Holy-
song, Joe.
All right.
Sing the song.
Bear down, Chicago Bears. Make every play clear the way to victory. Bear down, Chicago Bears. Put up a fight with the might so fearlessly. We'll never forget the way you thrilled the nation with your T formation. Bear down, Chicago Bears, and let them know why you're wearing the crown. You're the pride and joy of Illinois, Chicago Bears.
Bear down.